being isolated was just not normal. Being in a choir, we just expect to be with each other. When we were apart, many of the singers that I performed with, they felt that the quarantine also had a major effect on their mental health.
One of the first things that happened in this pandemic was that the poor choir in Washington State had that disastrous situation, and that started the country off in a singing is bad mood that went on, and the media took it over.
Of course, the lockdown has been devastating on so many levels, musically, socially, emotionally, on many levels. And I would argue perhaps especially for choristers, because choristers are people who seek out community, who want to make music together.
These people are truly bereft of their lives that they have counted on and that they love in particular.
I've been singing with the Symphony Chorus for 2/3 of my life. It's a place my heart calls home. It's a source of strength, during times of personal or even national difficulty, as well as life's journey of joy.
I started the Prokofiev Romeo and Juliet, and there's this massive brass chord in the beginning, and it was so loud I had to stop. And I was like this, and I said, that was loud, and this is laughing, yeah, that's loud. And I realized that, my hearing had adjusted to almost complete silence. The loudest sound was the seabirds migrating back. Silence somehow, maybe it's not a biologically normal state for us. I think we need some kind of ambient sound, and we need some kind of sounds that make us feel as part of a community and tribe, I guess, in the early days, very early days, and now like some kind of identity thing. And if we don't have those sounds, like singing in a chorus or conducting a symphony orchestra, then we feel kind of lost.
What I miss the most about being away from the chorus is singing with other choral members and creating harmony together. To me, this is such a sensational experience where the whole body gets to immerse with sounds and vibrations. I can't explain it well, but it is very special to me.
This is would have been my 28th season with the Symphony Chorus, so I have spent my life in Davies Hall almost more than anywhere other than my home. So to be suddenly cut off from that.
Every time I went to Davies Symphony Hall, I left all that was in my mind at the door.
I discovered something new in the music, in Ravenel's words, in the sound of the piano, or in the voices of the people singing around me.
A different era, a different life to make beautiful music with my fellow musicians.
I believe our last concert was Christmas, 23rd of December 2019. So for us in the Symphony Chorus, it's been particularly long.
We Need a Little Christmas from Mame, and at the end, the audience was in such an uproar that they would not let us leave until we performed an encore. Of course, the band played it super fast, and the whole room was just filled with this giddy exhilaration. It was the same energy I remember from going to punk and rock and roll shows in my youth. So I couldn't stop smiling. I'm sure I looked really silly, but it was great. It was so much fun.
The part I missed the most in this past year has been the audience. Really, the biggest reward that I get is listening and seeing the audience react to the performances that we give.
I think our audiences have missed us
Oh,
terribly.
very
Maestro,
much.
you have done a great deal of choral music, I know, and the audience is always, at least in San Francisco, they roar when the chorus sings in their appreciation of us, and they miss us when we're not there.
Some of the people that come to these concerts, they've heard that piece probably 100 times at home as well as with other choruses, and they're coming to hear us, and they're practically singing with us. When the chorus is really on top of its game, there's no other sound like it. There is no other sound.
That electricity of being with real people and breathing together in an ensemble is just magic, and I don't think there's any digital replica for that.
Yeah, I mean the musical aspect, working with the conductor and being able to respond immediately to the subtleties of the will of a conductor, but also the visceral aspect, the extra musical stuff. Filming in front of a green screen and then somebody else putting it together is not quite the same.
Here we are, having been deprived of the ritual function of live music, because that's, I think, what will bring with us a new awareness of the ritual function of being in the same room and making music together with an audience. Not everybody has a violin with him or her, but everybody has a voice. So we have a big opportunity here to think new and create new paths forward that are even more inclusive than in the past.
I think also that dialogue across genres and across eras is going to be a more central medium. And that's actually, I can speak to the inspiration for this project, which was very much about that, was bringing together a program that featured a chorale by J.S. Bach, very beloved melodically and in terms of gravitas and emotional depth, an antiphonal piece by Britten that's deeply beloved, and then two spiritual settings by Moses Hogan, which are all knit together by this kind of theme of solace and comfort that I think is a central role of choruses, is to help provide that for people, especially in times of hardship. And we hope that this project also is kind of like a foreshadowing, because the Bach chorale will encompass the full ensemble, and I think it's that sense of body corpus and inclusion of everybody's voice that we're just so excited to get back to. I didn't know what an audio interface was. I didn't know what phantom power was, and all the condenser microphones, and all the equipment. It was more like singing for film.
Yes.
So I'm excited to get back to the concert hall and the breadth of that kind of storytelling. I've missed it.
Exactly.
And I'll be very interested to see what we do in this world. There are more than 54 million Americans sing in choruses, and that was the research that Chorus America did. But I think we've been so creative in these months.
Sometimes there seems to be a more personal connection between the audience and singers, because maybe it's also, the threshold is, I'm not talking about quality, but it seems to be lower because everybody kind of carries the instrument with them. Singing is actually a uniting force in the world and in the society, obviously. So I think that's where the connection comes from. Mm-hmm. So it's, you are singing, but it's really us. And I think that's a powerful message.
It is not only an incredible group of singers and artists and musicians, but it's also a family.
I grew up in San Francisco, and I've been coming to watch the symphony perform since I was little.
It has had such a profound impact on my life.
When we heard the symphony play, inside my mind, I was thinking, wow, because it was so good.
So it was such a thrill to join the ensemble.
And it's also inspired me to be the best artist that I can be.
And I just remember just being floored. But then when the chorus came in and sang, it was double wow, because it was even more amazing. This glorious wall of sound on top of the orchestra's beautiful music. It was just, my life has never been the same since.
Lady
I think the major hurdle that we're going to have to overcome is really understanding who our new audience is going to be.
I think this is our chance to really emphasize that to people.
Yeah.
People are aware that they miss things, but to be able to tell them and say, validate these feelings of loss, to bring that heart that this chorus has. One of the things that I've always felt so strongly in my 28 years in the chorus is that this chorus has not only a technical capability where they can respond to the maestro who may change it the next day and still they can do it, and loving doing that, but we also have heart. So what I'm hoping in the future is that we see broader audiences of different kinds of people from different walks of life who will love the various kinds of music that we can put out there. And I know our maestro is going to bring some exciting things to us.
In the old days, I mean, even older days than just pre-pandemic, you did something and then you were terribly excited if that was mentioned in, say, the New York Times or the Frankfurter Allgemeine or one of these things. And no, now it doesn't matter. Because what really matters, as you said, we are coming back and we are serving the community. That's what we do. And we have to find ways to serve the community better than before. And it has to be intensely local.
I think really the conversation has to be ongoing. Mm-hmm. I think that's essential, is that people feel invited to the table not once, but again and again, and feel like it becomes normal then to have all these voices at the table, and then I think people gain comfort and fluency and want to keep coming back.
It's a process that has no end point. It's a dynamic situation. So an institution, performing arts institution such as the symphony, has to adjust and develop with times, and we have to accept that the society is changing, the culture is changing, and we have to change as well. The chorus can be a uniquely powerful tool in this process, because of the fact that everybody sings, and singing is part of the human biology. It's not limited to certain cultures. We sing because we are human.
I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, henceforth, blessed are the dead,
No singing together for a year. Respiratory droplets. Who knew choral singers could be so dangerous?
In a way, under the pandemic, it's breath that has been portrayed as the most dangerous. And as you say, there's little scare tactics around choral singing and singing in general. And I feel like us coming back together is like a reclamation of the healing power of choral singing and of breath in general.
I was at the dress rehearsal for the first concert at Davies Hall, and when the orchestra started to play, I burst into tears because I knew I'd missed it, but I didn't really know how much.
This crisis was unlike any other crisis in the sense that there was no public performance. Even during wartime, during the Blitz in London, Dave Myra has played the piano on Trafalgar Square, and the Stukas were flying around, and opera houses never stopped performing unless there was a bomb hit or something directly, and orchestras kept playing, choruses kept singing, and all this was, actors kept acting.
In all these other major world events, we've all turned to art and music for solace. After the Loma Prieta earthquake, I think within a week or two, the symphony performed, I think, Beethoven 9 in Golden Gate Park as a sort of, triumph over adversity. In 1910, after the 06 earthquake, Luisa Tetrazzini sang at the corner of 3rd and Market to concert to 200,000 people in 1910. It's extraordinary stuff like that we've always looked to for solace and for comfort and for sort of renewal. And that's the one thing that we haven't been able to do. And we're still sort of in the midst of it, and we're still afraid to plan or to think about doing something on any sort of scale like that.
I like to think that there's some learning from this, that we'll have to scale back into live audiences in full capacity, because we can't go from 0 to 360. We can't go from our living rooms, I think, to packed concert halls all at once. I think there has to be a gradual sense of things and people feeling safe over time, but also some learning from the digital branding. It's like, well, maybe we can actually have a global reach that's new.
2 weeks after my mother died, we performed Mahler's Second Symphony, the Resurrection Symphony, with MTT as the season finale. And in the fifth and final movement, this chorus stands up and sings, Auferstehen, auferstehen, stand up after a short rest, eternal life. And I started to cry. And I cried. And I sang, and I sang, and I cried. And I did what you do when you're having trouble on stage, which is to lock eyes with the conductor. And like a Sherpa, MTT pulled me through to the end of that piece.
So essentially, humankind was without this kind of solace.
I don't think I've let myself feel every day how much I missed that. It would just be too painful.
Yeah.
But I think that being back will just be magic, as you say.
And when the lights came up and the crowd leapt to their feet, I was quick to dab the tears off my cheeks. And I looked around, and half the audience was doing the same thing. What I thought had been so personal was, in fact, universal. And this is why I sing with the chorus, for the power of the music to transcend and connect us.